This shouldn't be a question, should it? We're talking about Georgia. Let me explain what Georgia has done the last 3 seasons. Excuse me, last 3 years. They have not lost in forever. Georgia is still the best team this year. If they lose one game to a very good Alabama team, it should not disqualify them. That was our buddy Paul Finebaum making the case that Georgia, should not be left out of the college football playoff, even with a loss to Alabama. I agree with him, by the way. Now, there are some caveats here as I turn on the light, which I forgot to turn on, makes it look slightly better. Look, the performance over this 12-game stretch has got to matter at some stage. And the disclaimer here is I'm recording this after the Egg Bowl, but before all of the other games with Texas and Oregon playing on Friday, so I don't know what the results of those games are. However, I will say this: there's the win that Texas had over Alabama is a great win. It is not the only result of their season, and a loss to an Oklahoma team that is fine, not a good Oklahoma team, not in the top 10, and then some of the ways they performed. It's just been bad, particularly lately. And what you do, to me, how the whole season has to matter at some point, not just one moment in time. So for me, I think that this is a pretty obvious statement. I mean, I think that if Georgia beats Georgia Tech, they certainly should be in the playoff. Now, will they be in the playoff? Probably, actually. I mean, I think they probably will be because I think they're not going to lose to Alabama. But that's me. Now, everybody doesn't view it that way, but I think Paul does. And this is a team and a program that stacked up so many wins in a row, y'all, that is going to matter in the subconscious of the playoff committee. They're going to be thinking about that, all right? And that's just what it is. I mean, that is not going to be ignored at the end of the day. These teams, it may seem like they are playing this one season, but they're not. They're playing this season, and last season will count for or against whoever's playing in these games. I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily right, but that will matter. Now, as it relates to Georgia this season, I don't know that anybody's had a better year so far than them. I think you can make the case that maybe Washington has, but Michigan, Ohio State, no, I don't think so. One of them will win on Saturday, and that'll be great for them. But where are the multiple wins over top 10 teams or top 12 teams, whatever it is? One of them will have that, and that one team will go. We're talking about a scenario where Georgia loses a game to Alabama, which I don't think will happen. First of all, I want to keep repeating that. But also, a top 10 Alabama, I guess. Well, Texas's loss is going to be to Oklahoma. That's a bad loss. Does Florida State deserve to get in over Georgia, whether Georgia's undefeated or not? For me, no. If you've got a one-loss Pac-12 champion, does that deserve to get over Georgia? No. So, I mean, who would in that scenario? Who would Oregon's second best win be? Like USC, I guess. Or Oregon State, in theory. Georgia's got 3 wins over the top 25. So, I don't, and it could be that they have 2 of our top 10 teams. That's going to be too much to ignore at the end of the day. Make sure you're not ignoring the opportunity to take advantage of what we got from our friends at EcoPoly, okay? You can customize your chair. Now, this is a Georgia chair, right? It's made of completely recycled plastics that are shipped into our friends down there in Dodge County and Eastman, and they craft this in-house. Take advantage of these deals. These aren't Black Friday deals. These are Dog Post deals that you can get 15% off and free shipping. Y'all, that's serious value. Look at that red and black. It looks good. Not as good as Georgia's looked this entire season, though. There's been moments where Georgia's not been great. The Auburn game. What else? We're holding a 10-point win over South Carolina against them now. I just don't know after a while. I mean, like, we're nitpicking. You watch Florida State play, they survived Clemson. They survived Boston College. That's not the same. That they were losing to North Alabama after a quarter is, for me, not disqualifying, but it's problematic. I mean, Georgia has won by 41, 42, 10, 30, what is that? 38? No, it's 28. Yeah. 7. And then blowing out Kentucky by 38, beating Vanderbilt by 13, the Gators by 23, Missouri top 10 by 9. They beat Ole Miss by 35. Top 10 Ole Miss at that moment, and probably will be top 10 in a few weeks. Ole Miss beat them by 35, y'all. That's 5 touchdowns. Are we using logic? And then they beat the Vols by 28 at Neyland. 38-28. I mean, it's amazing what they're doing right now. They're winning these last games against ranked teams. They're winning them by 32 points on average. That's a lot. No one else is doing that. So if something happens in Atlanta the way that it did in 2021, which I do not think will happen, for the record, Bryce Young is not coming out of that locker room for Alabama. Then, then you assess the situation. But I completely agree with what Paul Finebaum's saying. I think that we can't legitimately have a conversation about the college football playoff that does not include undefeated or one-loss Georgia. If one loss for Georgia eliminates them, why isn't Texas already eliminated? Okay? Why isn't Oregon already eliminated? So is this the game we're going to play now? Why isn't Louisville already eliminated, although they probably will be? So is it that you have to be undefeated? If it's that you have to be undefeated, why would you schedule any difficult games? Why would Ohio State go out and play Notre Dame and get a decent win, quite frankly? Will the loser of Ohio State-Michigan get in? No, I don't think so. It certainly would not be Michigan. They just don't have – a win over Penn State is like beating Ole Miss, I guess. That doesn't get you in. Alabama's done that. Georgia's done that. Neither of them are necessarily in for sure. One of them will not be. Perhaps both. When I see people saying the SEC champion will not get in, hey, listen, man. The only way that doesn't happen is total and complete bridge failure. Alabama does not beat Auburn and then beats Georgia. I mean, that is probably, there's a 7% chance of that happening. It's just extremely unlikely. So these discussions are cute and nice and everything, but look, a couple more moments here speaking out loud, which is that if you are the committee, I think that one problem that you've got is if chalk holds out, then you could really have a situation where you've got undefeated SEC, undefeated Big Ten, you could have undefeated Pac-12, you could also have undefeated ACC, and Texas with a 1 loss over Alabama team, that's pretty good. Now, for me, I'd put Texas in over Florida State. Why am I hating on Florida State? I'm not hating on them. I'm watching the games, and I'm completely acknowledging that they do not have their starting quarterback. They certainly could lose to Florida. They certainly could lose to Louisville. If Louisville wins, look, they're not in. They just no. So anybody that's lost to who they lose to? It was bad. Louisville's had a good season. But when you're barely beating NC State and you are losing by 17 to Pittsburgh, the answer is no. The answer is no. So, Pitt is 3-8, man. They walked the dog on you, man. Like that, no, you don't get in. That is disqualifying for me. Even if you win the ACC, it's not happening. It's not good enough. Beating Notre Dame, congratulations to Ohio State and Louisville. But Clemson beat them. So, no, the answer is no. So, I just don't I think people are not saying out loud what I am expressing out loud, what Paul is expressing out loud, which is, with very few circumstances, Georgia beats Georgia Tech and they're in. There can be other scenarios, but who's better than Georgia? Are we really going to have, if this is only about most deserving, which I think it will become next year, and I'm not as opposed to that because there are 12 teams. If this is about most deserving, why would you be in the SEC? Why would you be in the SEC? Georgia cannot control that it didn't play Oklahoma, a team that it quite clearly would have beaten, okay? Maybe really blown out, but we'll just see. Well, we'll hypothesize. But why would you play difficult games at all? You wouldn't. So I think this is we've got to, in this last year of the playoff, we have got to be in reality. And the reality is the best 4 teams should go. Does that mean Michigan and Ohio State should go? It might. But now I don't think they are both going to have the argument that they are a top four. I think Oregon right now, I think Georgia right now, I think the winner of Big Ten championship, well, of the Ohio State Michigan game, and I don't necessarily think that the Big Ten championship game would be a disqualifier for either of those two either, honestly, because we look around, right? I mean, if Iowa upsets the game's winner, does that preclude from everything else that's happened, take away from everything else that's happened this season? No, I don't think so. And I think you have to apply the same argument to Georgia.